Welcome to this week's episode of the Lit Up Life with Debbie Heiser. I am Debbie Heiser, and I'm so excited to have you here this week. We are talking about something that is critical to your wealth. And most people don't talk about it this way, but it's about clarity. So listen in and let's get really crystal clear. There's a moment in life when we sense an opening, where the life we've built begins inviting us into something more. Not because anything's wrong, but because we're ready for a deeper, truer expression of who we really are. This is the Lit Up Life podcast, conversations for those who are no longer interested in pushing, proving, or performing, and are ready to lead from truth, alignment, and inner authority. I'm Debbie Heiser, and here we talk about the inner shifts that change everything. How belief, identity, and energetic leadership shape the way you live, work, and choose. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming home to who you already are. Welcome back to the Lit Up Life with Debbie Heiser. I am Debbie Heiser, your host, and today's topic is one that I absolutely love because it's simple, it's powerful, and it's completely underestimated, and that's clarity. Clarity is one of the most potent wealth tools we have, and almost nobody teaches it as a wealth tool. And here's the deal. It's not because people don't value clarity, but because clarity requires us to do identity work. And many times we're a little nervous about that. So our nervous system tries to keep us safe. Our brain tries to keep us safe. And our emotional courage sometimes wavers. But it's about digging in and uncovering more about ourselves so we can have clarity. And you see, clarity is not about making a list or setting a goal. It's about reducing noise. I don't know about you, but sometimes the noise is so strong, and clarity is really about reducing that so then we can choose from a better place. It's about aligning our energy so our actions finally stop working against each other. So today, we're going to dig deep into why does clarity boost our income and our confidence, which go hand in hand, and then how clarity creates internal safety for us. And why sometimes confusion and why we stay in that confusion is really about protecting ourselves. And why clarity impacts relationships that we have. It includes our business, and it impacts both business and leadership. It also then impacts, and we're going to talk about how to actually strengthen our clarity in our daily life, because this clarity, it impacts so much about what we do day to day. So let's get into it. Why is clarity so hard? Why does it feel like sometimes that we're swimming in yogurt and we can't seem to see what it is that we want? Well, here's the truth. High achieving people often struggle with clarity, and it's not because they don't know what they want, but because they consider everything. So then there's all this confusion because we go into chaos because there's so many different options that we could go into. I mean, I don't know about you, but I struggled with multiple choice tests because I could always figure out and logify, I'm going to make up my own word, logify and justify why each answer could be true unless it was blatantly false. So people often struggle because of that fact. Now, women, I'm not men bashing here, and more men are falling into this category too, but women especially, we've been raised to meet everyone else's needs, to put on multiple different hats and take care of people before we take care of our own selves. We also, as women, have been raised to be flexible, to be a chameleon and be accommodating to everyone else, that we are constantly on vigilant observation to anticipate problems that might come out. And we're constantly adjusting and, again, being that chameleon or shape-shifting to keep the peace. So what does that really mean? It means as a woman, we're great at holding many possibilities, but we're not great at choosing one. Because you see, clarity, and some of you are not going to like hearing this, it requires us to choose. And choosing feels risky because we have to take accountability. We have to take responsibility when we choose. When we have clarity, it's on us. Now, what happens too is it feels risky because it feels like then we have all of these other possibilities and it kills those alternatives. No, it doesn't. It means we're choosing and we're going to go forward and do this one thing. But if it doesn't work, you can pivot. it also eliminates some identities that maybe we've had in the past. And that's where I was saying, doing this work internally it does take some work to uncover what that identity is and whether or not that's a true identity of who we really are and who we want to be. It also forces us to focus, which actually to me is not a force. It like helps you really focus on what you're going to do. It also helps you to say no to things that are not a hell yes, things that you potentially are filling up your time with. And sometimes that's scary because people get into the busy mode versus the staying focused and going forward, because sometimes we're afraid to be successful. I know that sounds weird, but I run into a lot of people and it's just brain science, right? So it's not judgment, it's brain science, and we have to unlock those messages around that. Now, clarity can make you visible. And again, I'm going to hone in on this again. It activates our responsibility. I can't tell you how many times I see people ask for like advice on Facebook or social media about which photo should I use? What should I name my business? Blah, blah, blah. Now, don't get me wrong. It's nice to have feedback, but ultimately what that means to me and what that says is that someone doesn't trust themselves enough to pick that one out. Now, sometimes we just do it for fun. I get that, right? But ultimately, then if it doesn't work, we can say that it wasn't our fault. We don't take responsibility for it. And it feels safe because when we're in confusion, right, and we don't have this clarity, that's how because our brains are designed to predict and protect. It helps us feel safe because it delays the action. We're not taking that step forward. We delay the visibility and it keeps us in potential. There's a really good commercial, and I can't remember who it was for, but it was a bank, about everybody was saying, oh, someday we're going to be in our new kitchen. Oh, someday this is going to get renovated. And they were visioning what it would look like, when in fact, then the bank says, this doesn't have to be a vision anymore. Make it reality. We're here to help you and loan you the money to renovate, right? So, and I remember even when we went to sell our house, my ex-husband was doing all of the work to get the house ready to sell. And he was doing the things, getting the contractors in there that we wish we would have done when we lived there. Right? So it allows us to stay in that potential instead of actually doing the thing. So again, the brain is kind of tricky because it's trying to predict and protect. So it's not like a judgment. So don't go into a spiral if you're feeling that some of this is resonating, or if it's making you mad, that means it's resonating. But clarity is really powerful. And sometimes people like get nervous about having power, right? And it's not power over, but it's like owning who we are. And sometimes that can feel dangerous to people, just like success can. So when you think about how that works, many of you have followed me for a while, this whole idea of neuroscience, right? Our brain loves clarity, actually. Even though it's trying to predict and protect, it loves clarity because it knows where to go. And clarity reduces anxiety. It reduces decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is a real thing, right? And it causes us to reduce then our overthinking. We're not overanalyzing everything. We don't feel overwhelmed anymore because we have that clarity. And it stops us from procrastinating, because now a lot of times procrastination happens because we don't know where we're going. And if you think about overwhelm and this idea of procrastination, like I gave up overwhelm a long time ago. And when I'm really clear, I don't feel overwhelmed. When I'm not feeling so clear about something, that's when sometimes I get to the edge of overwhelm, right? And also I try to make things really hard. Many of you I've shared before, and if you're watching on video, you can see I have an easy button from Staples, best 10 bucks I ever spent.
That was easy.
Because it reminds me not to make things difficult, right? And when we're clear, when we have that clarity, our prefrontal cortex activates, which means that our nervous system calms down, our creativity is bolstered, and that creativity happens and allows us to then think of new, exciting ways to do something. It motivates us. It inspires us to take action, right? Our actions become more efficient because we know where we're going. And then what happens to that is our confidence increases. And when your confidence increases, that's when we're going to get into the wealth part of it here in a minute. But that's when you start to show up as the authority in what you're doing and owning your sovereignty. Now, our brain is not only wired to predict and protect, but it's also wired to conserve energy. And clarity does that. And when you really think about it, and maybe this is another podcast, we're not managing time, we're managing energy. Because when you're in an energetic flow and you're doing things that you love to do, time just flies. And I know all of you have had situations like that before. But then when we're doing something that feels like drudgery, it feels like it takes forever to get done. Now, there's ways to hack that and shift that so that it feels fun, right? Like I love to watch a show while I'm inputting my mileage because then I'm at least having some fun with it and inputting mileage into my QuickBooks. So like kind of think about that, but our brains are wired to also conserve energy. Now, confusion is an energy draining state. Whenever I talk to potential clients and they say, oh, I want to think about this, I always ask what's going to change for them because ultimately they know. They know whether or not they want to work with me, and how the brain works is it's going to sit there and resonate on this decision and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, which is also why I take a deposit. Because once there's currency that is exchanged, our brain says, okay, the decision's been made. I don't have to think about this anymore. I don't have to worry about this anymore because it drains our energy. And I don't know about you, but I'm tired of having things in my life that drain my energy. So we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back and we're really going to talk about how clarity costs us money and how it makes us money as far as a wealth tool. Okay, we'll be right back. I want to pause for a moment because if you're listening to this, you know we were not meant to do this work alone. Build Her is the community I created for women who are building meaningful lives and businesses and want to grow without burnout, self-abandonment, or shrinking to fit. Inside Build Her, we gather monthly for real conversation, intentional teaching, and grounded connection with women who get it. This isn't about hustle, and it's not about fixing yourself. It's about being supported as you lead with clarity, confidence, and intention. So if you feel the pull towards a steady, honest, and expansive community, you're welcome here. Find the link in the show notes or join us at thelituplife.com/buildher. And we're back. Thank you so much. We've been talking about the brain, how it predicts and protects, how not having clarity costs us in way of confusion and energy. And when we do have clarity, how that allows us to move forward and we move faster than we would have before because we know where we're going. If you think about going on a road trip, now, don't get me wrong, nothing sounds more fun to me than just taking off on a road trip and flipping a coin on, am I going to turn right or am I going to turn left with no destination in mind? Especially if I don't have any time commitments, right? That's what that's all about. We're not about efficiency for that. But when we're doing our work, when we're in what we're doing, when we're building a business, when we're starting a business, when we're doing that project at work, it's usually also about efficiency. So knowing where I'm headed, I don't have to know the 800 steps to get where I'm going. But what I do need to know is the first step. And when I have clarity on where I'm heading, then the first step appears. And then once I take that step, the next step appears. I've talked about this before, and there's a clip in one of the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies where he's remembering something his dad said to find this bridge. He sees the thing across this huge cavern that he needs to get to, but he's not sure how he's going to get over there. And he remembers what his dad said to him. And so he went like under this lion or whatever. And he goes to take the first step and there's no bridge or anything there. So most people, it seems like they're going to fall, but he takes that step and all of a sudden this bridge with these stones on it appears. And then he takes the next step and then the next step. So it's a really good example of how when we have clarity, we conserve energy because we're only focused on the first step. Now, the next step may come very quickly and we need to take quick action. And that's where clarity helps us because we know we're heading that direction. But really then too, when we talk about wealth and money, what happens is when we're really clear, we don't have misaligned offers. We're not throwing spaghetti up against the wall, hoping it sticks. That costs money and time and energy. What we do is then we think about it and have a strategy around offers that we have for our products or services. Along with that, we actually are pricing whatever our product or service is as a value to someone, not as a cost to someone, and not as a widget that we're selling, right? There is a value to it. And so, on the opposite of that, when we don't have that clarity, we undervalue that pricing. So, right there and typically every person that works for me, we take a look at that, or works with me, we take a look at that, and the first thing we do is look at their pricing structure. And many times, I can't even think of one, to be honest with you, we look at that and they raise their prices. Now there's a lot of fear around that. I have one client that recently was nervous about it. She decided to go ahead and raise her prices, and now she's selling more of the items than she did when it was a lower price, because there's a perceived value also with the price. So it also depends on the market that you're looking for. Now, another thing that we can then make money from as far as a wealth tool is that we're not spending extra money on marketing that feels really scattered. It's aligned. So our message is aligned to what we do. It aligns to how we help people, how we serve people, how we help bring them more life. We also then make decisions in a much faster way. So if you delay a decision, I have one client delayed a decision on something. Now, the universe is always for her, so there's a better place for this, but delayed a decision, and then the thing that she was wanting was gone when she went to go get it, right? So when we delay a decision, it costs us something, but then also we're able to make a decision very quickly because we feel very clear on what we're doing. The other thing that happens when we have clarity is that it helps us not to make too many pivots. Now, you need to be ready to pivot. So COVID was a perfect example of that. Many service-based industries died out. They didn't know what to do. Some service industry people that I spoke with and gave ideas about things like a facial in a box, right? Sending the instructions, sending all of the things, being willing to get on a Zoom with someone to explain what to do, could keep money coming in the door versus them not being able to come to the location. So we have to be able to pivot. And when we're clear about who we serve, when we're clear about what we do in our lives from the bigger picture, those pivots can happen faster and we make decisions faster. Now, but what happens, and the cost to that, is when we pivot all the time because we're throwing spaghetti up against the wall and it's not sticking, right? So the other thing too is we can be passionate about things, and we can be passionate about numerous different things, and it has nothing to do with our direction. So what happens is when we know where we're going, the passion then comes through about that specific thing that we're doing. So clarity, it also makes our business recognizable. And it's the difference between I do a lot of things to I transform people, right? So for me, the difference is here's all the ways you could work with me, and I create all these things and I'm throwing spaghetti against the wall. Well, that creates confusion for the buyer. And when the buyer's confused, they're not going to purchase from you. So there is a wealth tool right there, right? Clarity allows the person that you're wanting to serve and provide more life to clarity on how they can work with you. So that's transformation, because again, they don't buy confusion, they buy clarity. Now, personally, this also shows up, and clarity creates clean boundaries. And you know, I don't love that word boundaries, but there are times that boundaries are appropriate. If your safety is there, if harm is coming to you or someone else. But what I like to say is it allows you to figure out what you're available for and what you're not available for. When I'm really clear about the work that I'm doing, I realize I am not available for people that pull me down. So for an example, I love to be around interesting people that are diverse and have multiple different thinking patterns. And I want to be in relationships with friends and people that are like a kite holder. And what I mean by that is they let the kite string out and I'm flying and soaring. And occasionally they'll just kind of tug on it a little bit just to remind me to stay grounded, right? I don't want somebody like the Macy's Day Parade balloon holders that are holding me down, right? That's what I mean about like that energy, as far as I talk about a vase and how that energy comes in, and we know what we're available for and what we're not available, we're able to stay strong and not pour out, but actually stand there with all this energy coming into us because we know what we're available for and what we're not available for. That also helps us have better relationships with people because we're clear about what we want and don't want. It doesn't mean that, like, there are relationships in my life that occasionally people are going through tough stuff, right? It doesn't mean that, oh, I feel like that's really heavy and I'm not going to be a friend with them. No way. That's part of relationship. But I'm not in a codependent relationship, so my emotions aren't relied on how they're feeling. So if they're happy, I'm happy. If they're sad, I'm sad. It's, I can still be happy, but still have compassion and feel for my friend that's going through something tough and be there to support them, right? Be that kite string holder to let them come out, but help them feel grounded when they're going through some of those things. So that then helps with emotional stability as well. I'm able to not let things feel personal to me because 99.9% of the time, the way people react or are in certain situations has nothing to do with me. It's the filters through what they look through. Now, that's as long as I'm living by the four agreements, right? And I'm true to my word. Many times in this world, we're not true to our word. The perfect example is how are you today? Oh, I'm fine. You know, I always want to say to people, do you really want to know? Anyway, it also helps us be more present, right? When we have clarity, we're present. We're not thinking about all of the like 800 steps to get across the cavern that Indiana Jones had to get across. We're present in the moment. Had he not been present, recalling something in the past to help him with his filter, something his dad said to him, and noticing things around him, he would have fallen through the cavern because he would have went through it the wrong way. So what that leads to is clarity actually leads to more joy. And it leads to less resentment, which is the circle back to joy. Now, many times these things come to us about lack of clarity and confusion in numerous different ways, right? Through entertainment, it comes to us even through religion. I was never more confused at times than I was when I was immersed in my faith. Now, don't get me wrong, I am still immersed in my faith, but I know that the things that are on my heart are not confusion. And so I've had to shift some of my thinking around that. So what happens is clarity also helps us communicate what I want or what I need without guilt. So in a relationship, think about how much better your relationship is if you can say, hey, I'm going to need for you to reach out to me a little bit this week because I'm going through a rough week or I have a lot going on, versus not telling them that you need that. I have a friend who wrote a book in 10 days, Lindsay Gordon. She was on my podcast a while back. And I loved it because when she was getting ready to write her book, she reached out to a few of us and said, hey, would you send a message via email to me to support and lift me up while I'm writing this book? And I'm going to print them off and have my husband bring them into me occasionally to remind me when I'm feeling in a tough spot to keep going, that I've got this, so on and so forth. Had she not done that, who knows if her book would have been written? And that's a perfect example of being able to do those things. So it also, what I love about clarity is it helps you stop abandoning yourself because you know who you are and what you're available for and what you're not available for. So I've said this before, but I kind of want to just kind of encapsulate this for you. How clarity helps you in your professional life is it creates faster decisions. You have a stronger leadership of your team or even of yourself. You have magnetic marketing that goes out that attracts people versus you feeling like you have to be in the hustle. You get loyal clients because people know that you're clear. They want to work with people that are clear and not confused. You have consistent momentum moving you forward, and you end up having business models that will allow you to scale without the hustle. Clarity is one of the highest forms of leadership, leadership of yourself, leadership of other people. And when you lead from a clear place, you create safety for other people. And safety creates trust. And trust is what creates the transformation. So I want to give you a few reflection prompts for you to just think about. Feel free to stop it as you're listening or feel free to write these down, whatever works for you. But I want you to think about, where are you settling for confusion because clarity feels risky? And how does clarity feel risky to you? And is that a truth or is there some untruth in that? Usually when we're in confusion, there's an untruth somewhere in our subconscious. Then ask yourself, what decision are you avoiding and why? The why is important to understand because that can help you uncover and unwind some of the messages that you might have about that decision. And if you were fully clear and in your mind there were no ramifications, right? Because our mind comes up with ways to predict and protect, and it's scary to move forward when we have clarity sometimes. And the more you practice being clear and have more clarity, the easier it gets. But if you were fully clear, what would you choose today? Because clarity isn't just a mindset, it's a wealth frequency. It's a leadership frequency and it's a soul frequency. And when you claim it, everything moves in your life. So if you'd like to talk more about this or have some space with me to dig into some of that clarity, help ask some questions to help you uncover what the untruth is, please go out to thelituplife.com, sign up for a next steps call, and we can have a chat about it. I would love to help you gain more clarity. And with that, folks, it's a wrap. Everyone have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you again in a couple weeks. Thank you for being here and for choosing to spend your time in this conversation. If this work resonates with you, subscribe to the podcast and stay with us as we continue to explore what it means to lead, grow, and live with intention. Let's build your version of the lit up life. I'll see you in the next episode.